problem with Donald Trump is listen, the problem with, let me finish. Hey, let me finish.
People are so outraged. I wasn't stopped talking. People are so outraged. You're so outraged about Trump being in a photograph.
The problem with Donald Trump is his repeated abuse of power dynamics. Throughout Donald Trump's entire life, he has abused power dynamics.
Wasn't screwing underage girls like Bill Clinton.
He walked into dressing rooms after he owned the beauty pageant. Have you seen the Howard Stern clip where he walked into dressing rooms?
Bill Clinton, he's a
segment from Abby Phillips, CNN program where progressive commentator Adam Mockler steps back into a panel discussion opposite several pro-Trump voices. The conversation centers on the newly released, heavily redacted Epstein documents, and the familiar insistence that Donald Trump bears no connection to them. We'll watch the clip straight through. I'll weigh in along the way. And afterward, I want to hear your take in the comments. Let's get into it. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Let me just read for you, actually. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says, this is horrifying. Trump called me a traitor for fighting him to release the Epstein files and standing with women who were raped, jailed, in stalls, and trafficked to men. Only evil people would hide this and protect those who participated. I pray for these women. The files today, I mean, people's names in terms of people who were involved, allegedly, are not in here. But it's very clear that there was something big happening behind the scenes. Tons of victims, tons and tons of evidence. That's why, going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, if you know anything about this case, it seems entirely improbable that it was limited just to the two individuals who we know are named, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
This is why I believe that Ghislaine Maxwell's statement to Todd Blanche, 9 hours recorded, right? The audio's out there now, was so utterly non-credible, was so utterly non-believable, because Ghislaine Maxwell's version of events was, nobody did anything wrong here except maybe Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell said, I did nothing wrong. If you believe that the only people who did anything wrong are the two people who've been indicted for this, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know what to tell you. But I want to point out another thing that DOJ is doing, to your point, Abby, that violates the law. DOJ has decided we are going to redact out the names of people who might have done wrong, but this might be embarrassing to. I understand that instinct, but let me read you what the law, the Epstein Transparency Act, says. It says, no record shall be withheld on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. Now, if you don't like that, that's fine. But this is what the law says. And DOJ has said, we're going to take out those names anyway.
That's astonishing. What's astonishing is that DOJ is just flouting the law.
Well, let's put in context for the viewers, though, how unusual that is. Because I think we got a lot of lawyers and former lawyers on this panel. I think it is so unusual that I think the execution of it has some folks in the DOJ who have been there 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, as a lot of career people are, confounded, because it's not what the policy has been.
Unusual, but it's the law.
Well, doesn't make it impossible.
So what are you going to do? You just going to ignore it?
I mean, that's right. I mean, Mark's right that all of this is contrary to what DOJ would ordinarily do. You'd never dump all of our investigative files. Right. You'd never name names of people who weren't indicted. But the law that passed 427-1 in the House, unanimous in the Senate, that Trump signed, says you have to do it this way. I think there's a lesson here, by the way. I think this law is overbroad. I think this law is leading us into dead ends, is leading us into all sorts of documents that are presented without context, but they have to follow it.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
I mean, isn't the remedy for this, I don't know. They
don't have a remedy. They have to follow
can't they challenge it?
No, I don't think DOJ has a basis to say, well, I guess
they challenge the constitutionality.
I guess
if the idea is that maybe people's rights are being infringed upon, would they not challenge the constitutionality of a law that forces them to infringe on maybe people's right to not self-incriminate or whatever it is?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think if DOJ was independent, they could go into court and say, yes, this violates the rights of uncharged people, the presumption of innocence. Pam Bondi has chosen not to do that.
Yeah. Let me play what the victims have been saying all day today. This is just a snippet of the reaction among some of the women who have come forward about their involvement in the Epstein saga.
I think that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel both need to resign. And I would love to see number 47 get impeached over this.
They are re-victimizing us in the same way. They gave us this moment of the Transparency Act where we passed a law and we were like, we're seen, we're here, we've arrived. And now to see the carelessness of the way that they're handling, survivors, it's just abhorrent. It's exhausting.
It's hard to hear that. It's hard to watch these women, as she said, be re-victimized. Yeah. DOJ officials were saying, well, if you have a problem with how we're doing this, you know how to reach me, just call me. Some of them have. Nobody's done anything about their names being in these documents.
But Abby, that's the very reason why the sensitivity and the typical policy of the DOJ in conjunction with these investigations is what it is to avoid re-victimizing
But it is not happening. That is the problem.
We have photographs of a woman, more than one woman, who were clearly victimized, clearly trafficked. They've been adjudicated to have been victimized and trafficked. Receiving massages and being intimately touched by one of the most influential and consequential political figures in the United States of America, and that's Bill Clinton. Where are the Democrats demanding that there be an investigation?
No one is defending Bill Clinton. I'll do it right now. Bill Clinton, if there are photos, an investigation should open. Now listen, there's no criminal.
Is there more evidence that Bill Clinton did something wrong with Donald Trump?
The problem with Donald Trump is listen, the problem with, let me finish. Hey, let me finish.
People are so outraged. I wasn't stop talking. People are so outraged. You're so outraged about Trump being in a photograph
that was
Donald
Trump is his repeated abuse of power dynamics. Throughout Donald Trump's entire life, he has abused power dynamics.
Wasn't screwing underage girls like Bill Clinton.
He walked into dressing rooms after he owned a beauty pageant. Have you seen the Howard Stern clip where he walked into dressing rooms?
Bill Clinton.
He says he grabs women because they let him do it. You can just keep talking over me. Can I say something?
Those are the enemy. Those are the bad guys.
Let's do this one at a time.
I'm going to include that Howard Stern clip at the end, so stay tuned for that.
Adam, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was trying to make a broader point that there's no criminal activity that has been proven with Trump, but his entire life has been spent abusing power dynamics. I don't even know if he knows what power dynamics are. He bragged about walking into the beauty pageant dressing rooms and 15-year-old girls then corroborated that and said he would walk into the dressing rooms. Abuse of power dynamics. He said he grabbed women because they let him do it. You heard that clip, right? You've heard that clip. Abuse of power dynamics. Abuse of power dynamics. Now that he's in office, he's abusing these same power dynamics to cover up the files, delay the releases, redact the releases. I don't care about Bill Clinton, Joe.
Go ahead and respond.
Do we all agree that Bill Clinton probably molested women? I'm not laughing.
No, actually, wait. Actually,
do we all agree
there are more photos of Epstein and Trump than Epstein and Clinton?
Molested children.
Hold on a second, Joe. No, we do not know that Bill Clinton.
He's not in a picture with you, Fred.
Joe,
he's not in a picture.
We do not know that Bill Clinton is doing what you are alleging.
Is there more evidence that Bill Clinton acted appropriately
that Donald Trump
Where was Jufrey trafficked out of, huh? Where was Jufrey trafficked out of?
Hold on a second. Seriously. I think both of you, I get it, right? Like, there is a lot of politics involved here. But at the end of the day, there are people involved. We don't know all of them, who they are. The political world is now focused only on two men for competing political reasons. And the people left in the rubble of that are women who were actually trafficked. This doesn't make any sense.
One of them, the women have said consistently that they were not touched by Donald Trump.
But your entire focus on just these two individuals completely obscures the bigger picture.
I'm not. I just know that there's a photo of that guy.
All I will say,
I don't know the other people.
Hold on a second. All I will say about Bill Clinton is I take him at his word that they want every document released. They don't think they have anything to hide. I would like to see President Trump and his administration say and act similarly, because I think that would be refreshing for the political system. Let's all sides of this put it all out.
Let's talk about one of the areas where things have really gone wrong with this situation, why we wound up with this Epstein Transparency Act that directs the DOJ to do something that have no historical precedent to my knowledge, right? And I practiced law for a couple of years too, as you know.
I just want to jump in 1 second.
Briefly, because an important detail gets lost too often. The issue being discussed isn't hypothetical anymore, it's settled law. After weeks of procedural chaos and vote-counting drama, the measure cleared the threshold. The representative was sworn in, the bill advanced, and ultimately signed it. That sequence matters. What started as a contested push ended as binding policy. And the fact that it followed that exact path is what makes this outcome so striking.
Why did it take this long? How many presidential administrations? How many reviews of these investigations? Why does it take this kind of an extraordinary act that is re-victimizing these poor women once again? What's been going on for the past 15 years? That's what we should be asking.
That is the question.
That's what we should be asking.
One of the few important, indisputable things that we've learned from this is that victims were coming forward to the FBI as early as 1996. There's a lesson there. Forget about your politics. There's a lesson there in being responsive to victims and giving them a fair hearing. Look, the original sin in this case was 2007, 2008, when Alexander Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney for the time, gave this absurd softball deal to Jeffrey Epstein, let him serve 13 months in state custody instead of he should have done decades in federal prison. By the way, that's one of the outstanding questions here. It's one of the things we've not yet seen in these documents. What were those prosecutors in that office saying? Because we know from prior OPR reports that there were prosecutors in that office. Maria Villafana is the name of one of them. That's public, who objected to that softball deal. That's something we need for accountability.
Some of the many documents I think that the victims want are things that speak to that. They want to see more financial documents. I think that in a way, when you hear them, they're not as worked up about these photographs as many of the people in the public are, because they want the investigative documents that point to what happened in these investigations. Why was that 1996 complaint not ever followed? What does it say on the flight manifests and the ledgers, the financial ledgers? Important information that's not out yet, should have been out last Friday, but here we are. Law just being kind of casually flouted by the administration. We'll see how long that continues.
This is one example
Next
of that.
for us.
A past interview with Howard Stern now making headlines. Trump talking about how he had free reign at his beauty pageants.
I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Today, a former Miss Arizona, who calls herself a conservative, going public in an interview with KCBS, describing what she says happened backstage with Trump at a Miss USA pageant.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked, changing into our bikinis.
Tasha Dixon detailing her discomfort.
To have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position, and then to have the pressure of the people that work for him telling us to go fawn all over him, go walk up to him, talk to him, get his attention.
She describes feeling helpless.
Who do you complain to? He owns the pageant. So there's no one to complain to. Everyone there works for him.
There's
A
no
central
one to
point here is the closed loop of authority. When everyone around a powerful figure answers to that same figure, accountability becomes nearly impossible. That pattern raises uncomfortable questions, not just in this case, but across other high-profile scandals people are familiar with. When oversight collapses, complaints have nowhere to go. The broader problem is how constant reframing and minimization can blur the facts. When new revelations are quickly buried by the next distraction, it becomes harder for the public to hold onto any single thread long enough to assess it clearly. Yet the record itself doesn't disappear. Taken together, repeated statements, and documented behavior form a consistent picture that deserves scrutiny. This isn't an argument for selective enforcement. Allegations involving or should be examined with the same standard. Both claims can be evaluated independently. Neither cancels the other out. Full investigation and transparency are the only credible way forward. As the discussion wraps up, the takeaway isn't exhaustion, it's the need to keep asking questions. There's clearly more ground to cover, and voices like are drawing attention, precisely because they press for that continued examination. Let me know what you think. What did we miss? And what deserves deeper focus next?